Okay, and I'm here with Emma. How are you doing today, Emma?
I'm good.
Wonderful. Now, Emma, we can both agree that first impressions are always a little bit awkward, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's actually why we're here today. That's what we're talking about. We're going to be going over a little something called uncertainty reduction theory. Have you ever heard of that, Emma?
No, I have not.
Well, I'll give you a little background. It was first thought of by Charles Berger, a professor at the University of California at Davis. And basically what it says is that our first interactions with people are always awkward because we don't really know what to expect from them.
Right.
So, in a sense, we're always trying to make out the world around us. Make sense of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? So, he kind of cuts it down into these three main reasons why we always feel awkward, talking to somebody for the first time. Number one, obviously, the thought that you're going to see this person again.
Again, yeah. That happens to me all the time.
Right? Well, because, if you're just meeting someone on the street, you might walk by and, who cares? You're never going to see them again.
Right.
But,
when you're in a social event, meeting someone at ASU, there's definitely a chance you're going to see him again.
So you're right.
And then
so
you get nervous.
You want to make a good first impression. Exactly. The other thing that he says out of the three is that they have something that you want, like an incentive. There's a reason for you to be a certain way, right? So your boss, you want to get the job. You're going to act like a certain way because you want the job. So you're going to be acting a certain way, right? And another thing that causes people to feel just uncertain is if the person you're talking to just is kind of acting out of the usual. You know what I mean?
Then you start worrying it's about you, it's your fault. Why are they acting like that?
Right.
That makes sense, yeah.
And both of us have definitely talked to some weird people, and you're like, wow, what, is something okay? It definitely happens. So,
right.
And it actually can be further divided into two major categories.
Okay.
One of these is kind of the question of, how should we act when we meet someone? That's cognitive.
Right.
If I first meet somebody, do I go, sup? Do I give them a firm handshake? Hello? How should I act? How will I present myself?
Right.
And the other is cognitive, which means what kind of person am I talking to? Does she have a good outlook on the world? Is this somebody who wants to be here? Is this does this person like animals? Is this kind of getting actually
assessment
getting
of the person?
Exactly what I'm saying,
Okay.
right? So obviously we've all been through there. So all of these are really important in the scope of online communication. I mean, me and you both graduated high school at the same time, so it was very different at the tail end of our high school when everything was online. How was that different for you?
I don't know. For me, I guess before my senior year, I transferred into a new school. So when we kind of went into that whole Zoom, I didn't know a lot of the people that I was talking to on Zoom. So it was kind of weird, getting first impressions on someone and kind of trying to figure out their personality, how they interact with other people when it's on Zoom, for a lot of factors, some of them being, people might act different when they're, on Zoom versus in person, or there was also the factor of, for me, it was always cutting out, so there were often, you know what I mean, there's often times where you can't even hear what the person's saying to you, or, and then the third and probably biggest thing for me was body language. You can't tell body language over a Zoom call.
It's so funny that you say that, because that's exactly actually what I was going to talk
Really?
about. Yeah. No, reading body language is one of the biggest parts of getting to know somebody. It's really easy to get to, know how somebody feels at you. When you're looking at them and you smile and they don't smile back, it kind of feels pretty clearly, quickly, they, this person does not want to be with me, all this and all that. but vice versa. If someone's like very nice, it it makes you feel more engaged to talk. So
more
those
reassured they want to be friends with you or whatever the situation is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are like the two things that I'm focusing on, is self-disclosure. So like, it's kind of like a loop. The more that somebody discloses like personal, close information, obviously like the more certain you're gonna feel with them, right?
Right.
The more like you're gonna feel more comfortable. Like, oh, this person trusts me, I can trust them back.
Yeah.
But actually, what studies found is that in online communication, just with no audio and no video, it was only through text. They found that people were slower to get to the point of self-disclosing deep information.
That makes sense, yeah.
Right? Because like, obviously, you don't know somebody. It's going to be a little bit difficult, right? I mean, have you been in a scenario like that before?
I mean, yeah, I think I've been in a few. I don't know, for me, the biggest thing is like, I don't know, I just feel like if you haven't met somebody in real life, it's a lot harder to trust them and to know them on a deeper level. Especially when it's just on text, like when you're talking about taking away the audio and the visuals. You're just reading messages, you're not getting a real connection.
Exactly. So, what are some ways that, like, you typically would, like, go and get to know somebody better, basically?
Like in real life outside of Zoom?
Well, like, regardless, right? Like, even if you're not, like, even if you're talking face-to-face with sign language or even just a text, like, would you say, like, the best way to get to know somebody is through, like, questions? Getting to, like, know them through questions?
Yeah, I think so. I think questions and discussion, I mean, just having conversations about even random things can help you get to know somebody better.
See, exactly.
You kind of figure out more about their personality through that way.
Right? So one study actually found that in just pure text-to-text communication, that there was an increase in the number of questions asked. There was a study where they had, they had 3 different groups of people, one of them being text only, right? One of them being video with no audio, and the other one was straight face-to-face. And what's funny is there were 3 completely different ways that they went about approaching how to reduce uncertainty about one another. For example, for text-to-text communication, they found that there was a higher number of questions asked, but at the end of the day, everybody felt more comfortable with each other no matter what mode of communication they used after about an hour. At the end of an hour,
really?
Yeah, everybody was like literally feeling the exact same comfortability with people at the end of 1 hour. They were all in the same time period. Like what does that say to you?
That an hour is a long time. I mean,
Right?
I think talking for a straight hour, like either way, you're gonna get to know a lot about that person. And I think especially what you brought up about in texts, it was usually questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense to me because I feel like, just from my personal experience, just straight texting people, it's a lot of asking questions back and forth. Like, how do you feel about this? Or what's your favorite hobby? What's your favorite activity? What's your favorite color? Just asking questions. And then I feel like when it's like in-person conversation, it's more of like talking about
Kinda
actual subjects.
feel the
and not
vibe.
Yeah, and not just asking questions to like learn random facts about them.
Exactly. Yeah, no, and that's what multiple studies found actually, is that all other factors aside, the time spent communicating was more important than the mode of communication. There was another study that found that even people who used online dating, they found that people who were more used to using the internet and online dating services, like, they were the same amount of uncomfortable with the person they first talked to as somebody who'd never used a dating app. So imagine that. Like, a guy who has, like, 1,000 matches on, like, Tinder, he is at the same level of uncomfortability as somebody who's never been on a dating app.
Right.
Every single time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, when it comes down to it, you're still talking to somebody you've never met.
Right. Well, and I just think that goes to show that, like, time is really the thing that is the most important part about reducing uncertainty. You know?
That makes sense.
Right?
I can see that.
Totally. Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, people being nonverbal obviously has its disadvantages. You know, not being able to read somebody's body language has its disadvantages. But, you know, at the end of the day, we find that people will always find ways to reduce uncertainty, even when, like, you know, new technologies are involved. I think we as humans find ways to adapt to, like, our most primal instincts, even though we use technology. So, Berger originally wrote, you know, his axioms meaning, like, truths, evident truths. They're always going to be true. And it's funny how they still play a role in our modern technology every day. So, for example, his first axiom is actually just verbal communication, just talking to people.
Okay.
And, you know, it also includes things like nonverbal cues, all that stuff. And it's really just interesting to see how, you know, how we have implemented technology into our most basic primal instincts.
Right. I mean, I think it's just become such a prevalent thing now. I mean, every single person that you know is going to have a phone. Right. Or they're going to have a laptop. Everybody's on social media, you know, outside of even texting. I feel like being on social media is almost the same way. Like, for example, Instagram, you're posting a picture, you're wondering how people are going to react to that. You know, like how many likes you have, who comments or who comments what. Or, like, texting people that you've never met on things like Instagram. Like, you're kind of, like, figuring out more about them in that way. And, I mean, that's pretty much, I feel like, a lot of people say, like, you're hiding behind a screen in that way when you're on social media. But at the same time, it's also so, it's so prevalent that it's almost, like, as anxiety-inducing as having a real face-to-face conversation. Like, especially, even though you have more time to think about responses, like, that can even create more uncertainty.
I think you're absolutely right. And yeah, like, just to finish this off, like, I think you really, like, hit it home here. Like, yeah, I was saying the same thing, like, since it's so, like, prevalent, especially after, like, COVID-19, and now you know for a fact that everybody has, like, online communication and the growth of social media, right?
It's just going crazy.
It's just been crazy. Well, thank you so much for coming out today, Emma.
Of course. Thanks
really
for having me.
It. Absolutely.